Who's going first?
All together.
All together.
Yes, ma'am.
First off, it happened pretty quickly. Could you just tell us what happened there in the courtroom as far as verdicts?
Yes, we received a very reasoned and logical verdict from the jury. We're very pleased. It showed that they were very attentive, listening to the proof and applying the law. And even though it was such a heart-wrenching case, it showed that they did their job and did it correctly. So we're very pleased.
And this was not necessarily a clean-cut case. There were, I know, eyewitnesses. We were dealing a lot in the nitty-gritty of DNA evidence. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. This was a case where DNA played a large part of it. But as so often happens with science, we had to use different types of DNA analysis. And really, it was the legwork of the detectives talking to different witnesses, putting all the little pieces of the puzzle together that made it all come together, I think, for the jury. The DNA was just one, obviously very strong piece of that puzzle, but it was a lot of little pieces.
Now, the charges were different from what were all the charges that he was found guilty of?
He was found guilty of second-degree murder. It was originally indicted for premeditated murder on that count. So what the jury's decision was that Roy Coons Jr. did the killing and that it was a knowing killing, but they just didn't find that there was necessarily the premeditation, which is reflection and judgment. Second-degree murder is a 100% crime. Given his prior record, I would anticipate at sentencing his exposure would be somewhere between a minimum of 25 years at 100% up to 40 years at 100%. He was also found guilty of the felony murder count. One of those, that carries a mandatory life sentence, which in Tennessee means 60 years at 100%. If he received all jail credit and was a model prisoner, it could only be reduced down to 51 true years.
And then the rest were
The rest were, well, the attempted rape of a child, which given his record, if the judge finds him to be arranged to offender, he would be looking at between 12 to 20 years. It would be up to the judge to determine if he ran that consecutively or concurrently. All of the murder charges would merge together for that life sentence. So we're looking at essentially a life sentence with the judge determining if he receives additional years for the attempted rape of a child and the aggravated trespassing.
And then aggravated burglary was bumped down to?
It was an aggravated trespassing, which I can understand the jury. The way the indictment read, it was based upon him breaking in with the intent to commit the assault. And I can totally understand the jury's decision in that case. And the end of the day, it's not going to affect really whether or not the community is any safer or not. I think the community is going to be safe.
So total of 5 counts?
Yes.
How was it working with the family? I know day 2 was very emotional, hearing from Patricia, and what is the reaction? Is this what they wanted?
They are probably one of the most gracious families I have ever met. They have so much class and so much dignity. These children are amazing. Jocelyn, who testified here today, she actually is a nearly professional violinist. She is planning on going to college and pursuing a medical career. Her little brother is also extremely brilliant and is very interested in science. So they have really done a good job raising these children, and it's our honor to be able to represent them, and that's what makes this job so satisfying.
The defense argued that a conviction in this case would be based on speculation, essentially. They seemed to sort of point at other people who cut the family's grass, even the father at some points in the trial. What's your response to that?
Well, Mr. Hopkins has a difficult job, and his job is to zealously represent his client, and he is a very good and ethical defense attorney and does his job and does it well. These detectives, we are very fortunate because they didn't have tunnel vision, and they ran down all of those leads. They checked into essentially every man that Yhoana had ever encountered, whether at church or at school or in her social life. And that really helped us with all of those types of arguments. Those are the arguments that we really receive in every case, because that's what a defense attorney's job is.
Can we bring in the other prosecutor?
Yes, Jeff George.
Jeff, if you don't mind stepping closer, sure. Overall, your reaction, and do you think justice is served?
Justice absolutely was served for this family and for this community.
And all the credit goes to the Metro Nashville Police Department, who did an amazing and immense amount of work in this case and put a ton of resources into this case and put together a great case and made our jobs pretty easy.
And one thing, if I could just do one shout out to the police department. This case is the perfect example of what happens when people put ego and credit aside and all work together. There were several different departments within the police department, the Youth Services Division, the Specialized Investigation Unit. We had people from the Sex Abuse Unit. There were actually meetings where they would strategize together. This was truly a team effort, and that's what I think brought about these great results. And Nashville is very fortunate to have such dedicated detectives that, frankly, let's face it, this was a difficult case for the jury to hear about, and it was difficult for us, but these detectives lived it, and they were there, and they have been so dedicated, and I'm just thankful that today they're seeing some of the fruits of their hard work.
And that's what I wanted to ask the detectives. You guys were at this crime scene, obviously always brutal, especially when dealing with a child. What is it like today to see this conviction come through?
It's been a long time coming. We worked really hard for this family, just because it's hard to wrap your head around the tragedy of a truly innocent victim. It's just, I don't know, not good at speaking.
I think you said it. It's been a long time coming. There were dozens and dozens of people in the police department, police officers, detectives, and support personnel, and CSI, and people from other law enforcement agencies. So there's been a lot of people put a lot of work into this, and we just hope that we can give the Arteaga family just a small step towards getting some closure and starting the healing process.
Can you say your first and last name for us?
It's David Kotzman,
Let's spell that.
Kautzman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.